Hi again, and welcome to the second video of the module. I'm going to tell you about a lesson that I've planned using Duncan's lesson planning from the heart idea. And as I do that, I'm going to connect it to the teaching practice assessment that you're all going to do when you come and do the face-to-face part of the course with us. So let's start with my lesson and my heart. And what I've decided to do is I've decided to have my students who are B2.1s, upper intermediate, young adults. I've decided to that my heart is going to be tell an anecdote and find similarities. The situation will be that we're telling an anecdote to each other that tells of a moment that someone let you down, and we're going to tell these anecdotes and try and find something in common with our own story. To do that, the linguistic aim, so that's my communicative aim. My linguistic aim is to practice narrative tenses, specifically past simple, past continuous, and past perfect. And my phonological aim is sentence stress with the target language, because what I noticed is that a lot of the sentences that contain the target language have both content and functional words. So I want to teach them a little bit of sentence stress with an aim of getting them to be more fluent, to be able to speak more easily and speak better. So those are my aims for the lesson today. So something that you can be asked is, how have you designed your tasks then? How have you designed your language tasks? And what I've done is I've decided that I'm going to base my language tasks on this model here, MFS. And MFS means that we're going to deal with the meaning of the language. We're going to deal also with the form of the language, and not to forget, because it's a spoken language that's going to be spoken and heard in the classroom, I'm going to work on the sound of that same language. So what I've decided to do is I've decided to tell a warmer, well, as a warmer, I'm going to tell an anecdote of when somebody let me down. And I'm going to tell that to the students, but then when they're finished, I'm going to ask them to retell the story to each other communicatively. As support, I've provided a text of my anecdote, which I'll ask them to quickly read after they've heard my anecdote. They turn over the paper and they'll retell the story. They'll reformulate it with each other, speaking task. And then when they've finished that, I'm going to ask them to take the text, and we're going to use it as Talo, which is text as a linguistic object. We're going to underline all of the narrative tenses that are in my anecdote. So once they've underlined the narrative tenses, then I'm going to ask them to place the narrative tenses on a timeline. So they'll look at my story and place the sentences, the target language in a timeline from start to finish. Those are meaning-based tasks, which just allows them to see that, past simple, if you've got 3 past simple sentences in a row, it's putting it in chronological order. But if you've got a past perfect, it means it happened before. And the fact that the past continuous will be giving them extra information of things that were happening at the time of the action. So after we've done the timeline, I'm going to use the same target phrases or target sentences to do a gap fill. So I've made a gap fill of the target language, and I'm going to ask them to, I've taken out the verb form, and I'm going to ask them to try and remember the story and put the verb in the correct form, past continuous, past simple, or past perfect. And that's dealing with form. So I think, doing those activities will pretty much cover the language in the time that I've got. And it'll give them a chance to process it and to ask questions as well, which I'm willing to do and help them when they're doing that activity. Now, to make sure that I'm covering the sound of the language, I've decided to use the target language, the same target language that I've used in the previous language activities for the pronunciation. So I'm covering the sound of the same language. And with pronunciation tasks, and how have I designed my pronunciation tasks, which they can also ask you, is based on real prawn practice for me, is RPP, and that just means that I'm going to do a receptive activity, physical, and productive. But today, because I've only got 60 minutes, I've decided that because it's sentence stress, I'm not going to do a physical activity, because I think physical activities are more about segmentals and individual sounds, or maybe even like word stress. But I think it's more segmentals, in my opinion. So I'm going to do a receptive activity, or two receptive activities, and a productive activity. And I've got, bearing in mind that I've only got 60 minutes for today's lesson, I've decided to take three of these sentences from the text that they've already worked on, and they've seen quite a bit, so they'll be very familiar with these sentences. The first one is, I went to the beach. The second one, I was just leaving when I heard somebody call me. And the third is, they had left a note at the bar. So what I'm going to ask them to do is look at the sentence, I went to the beach, and I'm going to read it in full, fast, fluent speech. And I'm going to ask them to underline the content words, the words that are strong in the sentence and they can hear very, very clearly. So I'm going to ask them to underline these words. They'll have it on their worksheet anyway. So I'll say, I went to the beach. I went to the beach. So I would expect them to, underline went and beach. And then I'll put, when they've underlined that, I'll ask them to tell me which words were strong. And I'll explain that these words, went and beach, are, content words that are important for the message. So I'll underline them on the board, and I'll put big bubbles, two big bubbles, one over went and one over beach. And then I'll show them that these functional words, like I said, in my Scottish accent, actually. So it'll be sort of almost like a schwa. I went to the. So there's going to be a reduction on the to, becomes t with a schwa, and then the becomes the with a schwa. So I'll put little tiny bubbles up there to show them that there's a rhythm to the sentence. So I'll drill it a couple of times chorally. I went to the beach. I went to the beach. So once they've got that idea that the content words are strong, I'm going to ask them to look at the other two sentences and underline the words that they think will be strong in the sentence, therefore important for meaning, and content words. And then they'll work together in pairs. They'll underline the words that they should see are, content words. So I was just leaving when I heard somebody call me. I was just leaving when I heard somebody call me. They'd left a note at the bar. They'd left a note at the bar. So when they've underlined it, they've got to listen. They've predicted what will be strong, and they've just got to listen and check what is strong. And I would expect them to have identified the important words in the sentence. But I'll go over it and make sure they've all got it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start drilling these three sentences. A little bit of productive before the speaking activity. So I've decided that I'm going to use a back chain. I'm going to start at the back, beach, the beach, to the beach, went to the beach, I went to the beach. So that we can, look at little sections of the phrase. So I'm going to back chain it just to make sure that they're getting the rhythm, and then do it all chorally. Then I've decided that because it's a rhythm activity, I'm going to do a choral drill, a hum drill, where they're going to hum. They're going to hum the sentences according to the big bubbles and small bubbles. And then, it's going to be a choral hum, just to build up confidence. That's the reason I'm doing it chorally at the moment. And then when I see that they're confident, then I'll do an individual hum. They're not producing the words as yet, but we'll do individual hum drills, and then we'll do individual drills. And I'll be very sensitive to who's looking, confident, and who's maybe shying away from it. So I'll be picking confident students, but the weaker students can get it with the choral drilling. So that's how I've decided to organise my pronunciation practice today, with R and a P. And then I've decided that in my lesson today, I'm also going to bring in feedback. Now, this is what I call CPR. Now CPR means, well, the original is cardiopulmonary resuscitation. The idea that sometimes the lesson needs to be brought back to life, or it needs something that allows me to improve it, to improve them, to make them feel that they're doing the right thing, or correct anything that they're doing wrong. So I'm basing, my feedback today on CPR, which the C will be correction, the P is positive feedback, and then the R is reflection. So I've decided I've only got 60 minutes today, so I'm going to do some correction and I'm going to do reflection, and then positive feedback we can do another day. So how's all that going to work? Just to show you here the heart of the lesson. Oh dear, it's just off screen, but I'll show you it later. So I'm going to start with the anecdote. This is how my heart plan looks. The heart of my lesson is the anecdote. And what I'm going to do here is start with the anecdote. My language there, I've got 3 activities with the narrative tenses. As I said before, the meaning, the form is dealt with. And then we're moving on to the sound of the same phrases. So we're going to listen and mark for the first sentence. And then we're going to predict and listen for the second. And then I'm going to do the drilling, as I told you before. The reading obviously is coming in as a text, as a support for the language. We're going to do Tavi and Talo. We're going to bring out the language from the text, from my original anecdote. And then what I'm going to do, and I'm going to reduce this to that so you can see feedback and reflection at the bottom. I've decided to go with the correction sandwich that I was talking about in the first video, that Duncan and Lindsay called the correction sandwich. So I've decided to have the anecdote telling in 2 parts. So they're going to, for 7 minutes, they're going to tell each other their anecdote. Now, it's because that anecdote is based on a time when somebody let you down. So, we'll be listening to each other and we're trying to find, things in common. If it's the same things happened or similar things happened to us as we listen. So the idea behind that is that the listener has a task while the other one, his partner, is telling the story. And then I'm going to stop them and I'm going to do correction, because I suppose there's going to be some possibly, I'm just supposing that there'll be some problems maybe with the grammar, maybe using too much of the past, the past simple when it should be, a little bit of past continuous and past perfect. And then I'm going to set them up again for 5, a little bit shorter this time, different partner. And I'm going to ask them to tell the anecdote again to increase their fluency. I'll give them less time to do this with a different person, and they're doing the same thing again. They're listening to see if there's anything in common with the big letdown that they had. And so they'll each tell each other the anecdote. And then what I've decided to do is to finish the lesson, I'm going to ask them to reflect on, what they've learned today by drawing one of your partner's stories. Just, a very simple drawing where they're going to draw something that represents one of the stories that they've heard. And then they will then quickly tell another person, what somebody else said. So it's a little bit kind of like a gossip, Monty told me this, and this picture represents that. So that allows them then to reflect on the learning, the tenses and the stories, etc. So that's my heart lesson, and how it looks all kind of like messy and all round the heart, but obviously everything is supporting my communicative activity. In terms of the linear model that you would present, just quickly say that the anecdote, first 3 minutes, the TAVI activity will be 5, the underlying narrative tenses will be 5 as well. My grammar activities will be, the placing on a timeline is 5, with a little bit of feedback. Fill the gaps again is 5. Pronunciation, listen and underline, I think it only needs 2. And notice that, this micro timing here, that you're not all just 5, there can be 2 and there can be 7. So, that's how it's looking. Notice that the speaking then will be 7 in the first one, but then it will be reduced to 5 for the second one. But I'm going to give some time for correction, 5 minutes, and I want some time, for the reflection as well. So that's my lesson. Thank you.